Okay, grade 9. So we're looking at the review. I posted a video for the biodiversity and the chemistry, now environmental chemistry. What's the role? And once again, remember, you need to be going through your notes to get the full effect of this review. If you're just copying this down, you're really only getting half the review. What's the role of following organic nutrients? So carbohydrates are your daily energy source. Proteins are used to make muscles and enzymes. Lipids are used for energy storage. Vitamins, essential nutrients for metabolism. What am I missing from here? I am missing macronutrients and trace elements. So we need a little bit of those for proper metabolism as well. Classify the following as organic. So organic has to have carbon and hydrogen in it. So sugar has carbon and hydrogen, it's organic. Water has hydrogen but no carbon, so water is inorganic. Salt doesn't have any of them. That's chlorine and sodium, that's inorganic. Number 52, what's the process called where materials accumulate as they move up the food chain? That's bioconcentration or biomagnification, either of those. Number 53 is sugar is dropped in water. It will undergo diffusion. What does that mean? It means that it will spread out from high concentration to low concentration, whereas bioconcentration takes things in low concentration and makes them more concentrated. Number 54, in this food chain, grass, arrow, grasshopper, arrow, snake, which organism would have the highest concentration of DDT in their fat cells? That would be the snake because it's highest up in the trophic levels. Trace the steps from high phosphates and nitrates to low oxygen conditions. So once again, high phosphates cause algae overgrowth, which causes death and bacterial increase, which lowers the oxygen, and there's no photosynthesis because the algae covers the top of the lake. For the following bioindicators, if the water is polluted, will their numbers increase or decrease? So worms, if the water is polluted, increases. There's more stuff for it to feed off of. Mayfly larvae need high amounts of oxygen, so that will decrease. If the water is polluted, there'll probably be more algae in it. Trout lives in clean water, so their population will decrease. Bacteria, if it's polluted, there'll be more death, so there'll be more need for bacteria, so its numbers will probably increase. Number 57, if the concentration of chemicals is 5 parts in 250,000, what's the ppm? So parts per million. So if there's 5 parts in 250,000, that would mean there's 20 parts in a million. You could set up a ratio to do that. Next one, change 23 ppms into ppbs. So here's your conversion factor. So 23 ppms is 23,000 parts per billion. 59, acids turn limits red, bases turn limits blue, and if red limit stays red and blue stays blue, it's neutral. List the properties of acids. Acids taste sour, they turn limits red. Acids neutralize base, they corrode metal. pH is between 0 and 6.99. They also taste sour. List the properties of base. Bases taste bitter, they feel slippery. pH is from 7.01 to 14. They turn litmus blue, neutralizes acid. And of course, some other things you need to remember and be aware of is acid precipitation, that's vehicle and factory exhaust. We talked about the ozone layer, which was chlorofluorocarbons. We talked about global warming, which was caused by CO2 emissions from burning fossil fuels, and you should be aware of some ways to try and control those. This question shows up almost every single year on the government exam. And so some simple questions. What's the strongest acid? It's going to be the lowest pH. It'll be A. What's the strongest base? It'll be the highest one, closest to 14, which is B. Which one is closest to neutral? That's closest to pH 7, and that would be C. Yeah, I mean, I made them simple like this, but the government question will be a little bit tougher. In order to neutralize an acid, what do you have to add? That's easy, base. If the pH starts at 12, then a base is added. What happens to pH number? So if you start at pH 12, if you start at pH 2, and then you add a base, what happens to the pH number? Does it increase, decrease, or stay the same? So here you're adding a base, right? So it'll neutralize at 7, and then it'll go up here maybe around 13. So the pH increases as you add that base. What pH is the safest for aquatic organisms? That would be pH 7. A dangerous chemical like DDT is banned in Canada only. Why wouldn't this keep us safe? Because DDT can move through the food web, air, or water. So it's got to be a worldwide ban in order to accomplish that. It's a global problem. Classify the following as biodegradable or non-biodegradable. Biodegradable means it can be broken down by living things. So the apple peel is biodegradable, and most candy wrappers are non-biodegradable. Classify the following as persistent or non-persistent. Persistent means stays for a long time. Non-persistent means it breaks down pretty quickly. So sewage is non-persistent. It'll get broken down. Dirty oil, though, is persistent. It'll be there for hundreds of years if you dump it inappropriately. What is LD50? It's lethal dose 50. It's the amount of chemical concentration it takes to kill half the population. They can give you a graph question like this, and you'd have to see where half the population has died, and then go across and read the concentration from it. Number 70, which is safer? Chemical A has an LD50 of 0.05. Chemical B has an LD50 of 50. The safest one is one where it takes a larger amount of chemical to kill half. This one is really dangerous because at 0.05 ppm, it will kill half the population. So this is definitely the safer one, chemical B. Where's a safe place to store hazardous waste from industrial processes? That would be a secure landfill. Where's the best place to store everyday household waste? That would be a sanitary landfill. How do we design sanitary landfills to keep the waste in? That is to stop wind from blowing it, stop the smell, stop the leachate from leaking to groundwater, stop animals from coming in. So we need fences, we need 6 inches of daily dirt cover, we need the clay or plastic liner as well to prevent all that. In this case, what's being added to this to create this pH curve? So it starts at 14, we start adding chemical, and then we end up down here around 1. You're obviously adding acid to that. And these kind of questions, pH curves, are starting to becoming popular on the final exams. Okay, and so let's go ahead and look at space. What's the difference between geocentric model and the heliocentric model? The geocentric model has the sun at the center. Sorry, has the Earth as the center. The heliocentric model has the sun at the center. What technology is used to determine what stars are made of, whether they're moving towards us, away from us, and how fast they're moving? That's all spectral analysis. If the lines match up, that element is present. If the lines shift towards the red side, that means it's moving away from us. If the lines shift towards the blue side, it's moving towards us. And if they shift a lot, they're moving fast. And if they shift a little bit, they're moving slowly. In this case, what's the star made of? You just had to, star A, what it's made of, you just have to match up the lines, and the hydrogen lines match up, and the calcium lines match up on a better picture that's on your sheet than hopefully that's I've scanned in here. What's the true shape of the orbit of planets around the sun as proposed by Kepler? That would be elliptical or oval. In order to determine how far objects are away in space, to do triangulation, what is needed? You need 2 angles. You need a baseline as long as possible, so you need a meter stick to do that. And the concept is called parallax for it to work. In a triangulation parallax method, the scale is 1 centimeter equals 5,000 kilometers. If an object is 12 centimeters away in the scale diagram, how far away is in reality? Well, you go 12 times 5,000, it's 60,000 kilometers away. Use altitude azimuth coordinates to find the following questions. So remember, azimuth is on the ground. It starts at 0, goes all the way around to 360. Altitude starts at 0, goes up to 90, and then back down to 0. And there is a front side and a back side. And we did worksheets on this. Could or could not show up on the exam, I don't know. What conditions must be met in order for people to live in space for a month? All right, so you need air, you need water. You can use recycling it, for air you could also use OGS, oxygen generation system. For food, you could grow it or take it up there with you. For temperature extremes, you might need to have a way to reflect energy. So that's why they have a little gold on the space helmet, so it reflects the energy away from them. Or you might have to find a way to increase temperatures. You could have black surfaces, or you could have solar panels that change solar energy into electricity, electricity into heat. You need to have a way to remove waste, carbon dioxide. Urine, actually now they recycle the water, So there, and then what do they do with the solid waste and the liquid waste? They actually have it they store it into these capsules, and they release it, and the capsule burns up upon reentry, or you could put it in. I believe that's the way that they do it right now. Radiation. To prevent radiation from coming in, you need a white or a gold surface that reflects the radiation away. Number 87, what sources can be recycled? Water can be recycled, air, and waste. You can recycle or renew those. Okay, the oxygen generating system, water reclamation system, and that sort of thing. What's a staged rocket? It's a rocket with 3 parts. Each part falls off while it's empty, so it allows it to go further and faster with the same amount of material. What is the space shuttle most like? Was it like a skateboard, car, motorcycle, bus, or U-Haul? It was most like a U-Haul. Its main job was carry heavy payloads into space. What's the Hubble telescope used for? Remote sensing to look into deep space. Landsat is a series of satellites used for remote sensing of weather, forestation, climate change, erosion. Of what planet? Earth. That's easy. That was more of a question to focus you on remote sensing from a distance. What's Canada's main role in the shuttle program? It was the Canadarm. We also have research scientists too, but that's our main arm job was Canadarm. And Canadarm1 was on the space shuttle. Canadarm2 is on the space station, and they're talking about Canadarm3, which will be on the lunar station at some point in time. How many satellites are required to determine your position with GPS? That's 3. What's the name of the type of orbit that keeps objects directly overhead? It's used for TV and radio broadcasts. It tends to be geosynchronous. It doesn't have to be. What is the name of the type of orbit that's used for communications? Because they're not high up and they're constantly moving across the horizon. That's low Earth orbit. There's a thick cloud of dust and vapor shadowing a quadrant in the solar system. What technology could use to see through that? That's a radio telescope. A radio telescope can see through dust and clouds. What technology can be used to get space probes moving faster towards Uranus or Uranus? That'll be gravitational assist. I mean, technically, I suppose you could say it's a staged rocket as well. But when you're getting out that far, your staged rocket has already used up its fuel. What's the name of the technology where 2 or more telescope images are combined to get a better look at space? That's interferometry. And remember, there's also VLBI, very long baseline interferometry. There's also VLA, very long arrays. What drives our desire to go into space? So this goes back to our viewpoints. So political viewpoint could be United States versus Russia, the space race. Military viewpoint was like the V2 rocket. Economic viewpoint, creating jobs and new products. Social viewpoint, world cooperation. Industrial viewpoint, we can develop new medicines and materials. Difference between the inner and the outer planets. Inner planets are the first 4, outer planets are the last 4. Inner planets are all solids, outer planets are all gases. Inner planets have less moons, outer planets have more moons. Inner planets have shorter years, but longer days. Outer planets have longer years, but shorter days. Name a planet with terrestrial composition. That would be any of the inner planets. Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. What is an Earth year? It's 365.25 days, and it says takes the amount of time it takes for the Earth to move around the sun. And then I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop here and do one more video for the electricity.